It's on.
Okay.
Yep.
Say
Hello,
a global
everyone.
hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Getting
Hey,
ready
Mom.
here.
We hope you are everyone well.
How is everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah.
How are you doing in Germany?
Not bad, not bad. Middle and partially moving. So a bit stressed out every now and then, but it works.
Well, the first German tourists were allowed into Mallorca this week as a pilot program to test out to see if they're going to bring the virus back. So
Well,
if Germans behave themselves, we're going to open the borders to the world. So, pressure's on you guys.
damn it. I'm pretty sure they try to fit into the strict regularities over there in Spain, because here it's not that strict. So let's see how it works out.
Yeah, it'd be a good test. What's it like in Montreal?
Montreal it's kind of getting in control now, but Montreal was the city that was hit the most across Canada. So that was not fun. But again, it's also in the caring houses, I think we call them in English, that got hit the worst. But yeah, it's getting there, coming back, but still have to be careful.
Yeah.
We can go to the park. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can go to the bars. The playgrounds are not open for the children, but you can bring your children to the bar, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to drink?
It's better to go to a bar than it is to go to a playground, apparently.
We want to go to the bar and drink, see friends.
Keep healthy from the inside.
Yeah.
Bars are closed in Montreal I think for a while again. Yeah.
Okay.
But restaurants are just barely starting to open. So.
In Germany, almost everything's back open, like restaurants, bars, playgrounds for long, museums, schools.
Wow.
Yeah. But still, you have to wear masks when you go shopping and so on. So there's still things in place.
Yeah.
We have to wear masks indoors.
Do you have a lot of people wearing masks around the world? Mallorca?
So in Spain, you have to wear masks anytime indoor. Any shops, shopping centers, public transport is masks. But a pub and a restaurant, no mask.
Okay. Do you have control on this, or is just okay?
Mainly the shops control it. So there will be someone at the entrance to the shop, and they won't let you in if you don't have a mask on. So
probably because they get fined when somebody is in there without a mask, and then
Well, next week, like the end of this week, we finish this state of emergency. So then we go back to normal life in a way. We're out of that state of emergency, which means it's up to the businesses to then, not the police, but the businesses to kind of say, right, here you need to wear your mask, and them to enforce it. So, but people generally are, using the masks and doing it. So it's not a problem, or at least here in Mallorca.
Yeah.
We'll
Germany
see when
really depends.
come in.
So inside shopping markets, like 99% are wearing a mask, and it works well. But in public transport, where it's also mandatory, most people come in and then they just rip it off. It's like, why? Why?
Yeah.
I took the train last time because I had to move some stuff, and then 10 minutes driving by train, and everybody put their mask off. Like, what is going on? Is the virus gone now here? Have I missed something? So that was really weird. But yeah.
We have one question. I don't know if you put it on screen yet about the Discord or Slack channel.
Yeah, I can. I answer them, but yeah, you can get all the information on vue-montreal.org. I will put it on the chat again. If you have any question, and if you're on the Slack, Discord, etc., you have everything.
Cool.
It's really nice to see that this website is also open source, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are trying to get people to work on it and make it simple with Nuxt. And we are working on a new website. It's coming soon, and we open a lot of issues so people can start to help and learn Nuxt with us.
I think it's also good to have some like good first issues for people who feel like, okay, I don't have a personal project where I want to work on, so I can grab an issue, solve it, help people, and also learn. So that's a nice opportunity, I think.
Yeah. We try to make it easy. Yeah.
And we really look forward to learn a few tricks today, talking about SEO, talking about static sites. So yeah, we'll listen.
We hope
carefully.
you will.
That's the plan.
And by the way, talking about Discord and Slack, is there a Discord or Slack for Nuxt.js?
Of course. Discord.nuxtjs.org.
Yeah, Alex lives in it. He sleeps there.
Literally.
We should put that. Yeah.
I will.
Perfect.
You can start the presentation, I think, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait 2 minutes still to respect the 12:05 schedule to let people.
I'm just going to answer Edouard's question there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Nuxt content module. So it'd be great to know if anyone actually is using it. So like while we're talking, it'd be great for us, like just keep your comments coming in so we can kind of get great feedback as well, because that's really important to us.
Great.
I personally, no spoilers, but I have used it. I'm also thinking about when I have some time in the future. I might move my blog to Nuxt content. Currently, I have some self-built API, but that's definitely a nice use case as well. I also used it in some projects for a couple of things, and it's really powerful. So definitely a good thing to check out.
It is great, and we're using it for the new Nuxt docs, etc. Everything was going to be done with the content module. All my website is done with it, so I've been playing with it like full on for quite a while.
I love StreamYard. It's so good.
So what's the weather like in Montreal? Is it like summer or sunny, cold, winter?
Oh yeah, because you don't see anything. But it's very sunny outside.
Yeah.
T-shirts, so I'm guessing it's okay.
Yeah, we have a good T-shirt at Vue Montreal.
Yeah. Summer is getting there, yeah. We should have a small like canicule, we call it here, like for this week, the end of the week. But it varies a lot. Last week it was kind of coolish, but
okay.
Today it's 27, 28.
Yeah, it's very nice day.
Yeah.
I think here is 23 or something, so not as warm, but it's still great.
I think you win. I think we're about 25, so yeah you win.
Oh, so it's 12:05.
I'm in Boston. I'm in Mallorca, in Spain. Someone just put in the chat there.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm in Mallorca, the beautiful island in Spain.
You might be in Boston in the future, right?
But right now I'm in Montreal, so I could be anywhere. Just a click of a button and I could be anywhere.
True.
I was in Boston, though, before when you were allowed travel. I was there last year. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Awesome. Guys, let's get started. It's 12:05. And so, yeah, let's start with our program today. First of all, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Vue Montreal community. And thanks a lot for joining today. I know there's people from Montreal for sure. I'm curious to know if there's a lot of people from outside Montreal. So if you can just let us know in the chat where you are from today, and we'll have a look at that. So today we have a packed schedule. We'll try to really keep our 90-minute program that we have today. And on that, I'll just do a very short intro of what Vue Montreal is. And basically, there's three things you should just keep in mind. First, we announce all of our events on meetup.com, so make sure you follow us there. And also, we have a Slack channel. I know there's a question that was asked already about that. So we have a Slack channel for Vue Montreal. Anyone from everywhere, anywhere is welcome to join there to talk all things Vue.js and talk also about ask for help or help people. That's a really nice place for this. And if you want all these links, we have a website, vue-montreal.org. And that site is in Nuxt.js. And we're definitely happy to have Nuxt.js in a guest today so that we can learn a bit more about that and improve this site. Also, a quick shout out to Florent Giraud, who's right here on screen. Thank you, Florent, for the help of behind the scene, getting our speakers today, and so on. So that was very helpful. Thank you for that.
It was really easy. Like immediately said yes.
Okay, awesome. So the other thing on the agenda, you might have seen we have an open mic session. That's a tradition we have in normal in-person event. I'll try to keep it today, but of course there's no actual mic for everyone. So just put your comments in the chat box, and we'll go through them once just before starting the second talk. And the open mic is basically for anyone who has to wants to announce something useful for the community. Let's say you run a meetup, another meetup we should follow that is also virtual, that anyone can join. That would be awesome. And if you're recruiting dev, Vue.js dev, things like that. So that's for the open mic. You'll be able to we'll talk about that between the two speeches. And so today we have a very special guest from the Nuxt.js company now. If I understood well, it's a funded organization that's really there for the long run. And we're very happy to have Alexander and Debbie with us. And for the format, we'll do the talk, and then you can put your question along the way, but we'll really take 10 minutes after each talk to go through questions and make sure everybody's question gets answered. So on this, I think we're good to go. And let's start with our first speaker. Our first speaker is a developer and teacher for Nuxt.js team. I know he maintains a few open source module, and he helps a lot in the community. Apparently he's always in the Nuxt.js chat. We were even wondering if he sleeps sometime, but that's great. He's also a speaker. He spoke at the VueConf US in March 2020. I mean, probably the last time we could do a real event for in the recent months. And basically, he's also a dev with his own company he founded in when he was only 18 years old. I found that very amazing. He excels at a lot of things: UX, process analysis, and especially SEO. And today, that's the topic he's going to talk to us about. He will go over the best SEO practices and how to implement those in Nuxt.js. So without further ado, with the talk entitled SEO in a Nuxt World, please welcome Alexander Lichter.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. What an awesome introduction. Yeah, I think I can leave out my introduction slide at all. Okay, so let's get this started. First of all, there are 5.6 billion Google searches a day. Think about it. 5.6 billion searches a day. That roughly means 63,000 queries a second in average. But how high is the actual percentage of websites that get traffic from Google? So you Google something, then go on a website, and how many websites are listed there? What do you think? You think a number, maybe also write it in the chat. And in a few seconds, I'll tell you the results. So I'll give you a bit of time. Feel free to write it and guess. And the answer is Not even 10%. So 90.63% of pages, they don't get any organic search traffic, so search traffic from search engines. According to a study of a company called Ahrefs, and so they surveyed, or they didn't survey, they analyzed over 1 billion pages and found out that not even 10% getting traffic from Google. So we want to make sure today to find out how your website or your project could be in that 9 point something percent that actually get traffic from Google, and of course as much as possible. So welcome to SEO in a Nuxt.js world. A few sentences about me. As I said, I could always leave it out. I'm Alex, Nuxt.js core team member, dev advocate, teacher. I have a Twitter handle and a website, and also a blog where I sometimes post more or less in-depth things about Nuxt.js. And yeah, as Tommy already said, I self-founded with the age of 18, so almost 5 years ago now, a company called Development. We're mostly doing consulting for web development, Vue, and Nuxt, with that focus, of course. Yeah, but let's jump right to the topic. What is SEO? I'm pretty sure almost everyone said, okay, SEO, I know, I've heard it, and it's so important. And maybe my marketing departments tell me, yeah, we need SEO, but what is it exactly? So I don't want to come up with a definition. I'm just saying, first of all, it's not rocket science. If you thought, okay, SEO, it sounds like witchcraft or magic. It's not. It's really not. Also, though it sounds like the search engines are prioritized, we have to think about the users first. And SEO is not a sprint, it's a marathon, so continuous work is needed. And it's quite easy to get started with. That's also what I want to show you in this quick talk today, but it's hard to master. And like web development, it's changing a lot. So there are a couple of Twitter accounts that you could follow, and you get basically search engine optimization news every day. New tweets from Google, what they're saying, what they say you should do, shouldn't do, some interpretational things, whatever. But we don't have to mess around with that. If you have the basics straight, you're almost better than 80% of your competitors in average. It depends on the industry, of course, but that's and also on the country. But that are usually figures. Okay, so SEO is important for pages search engines can actually crawl. So the pages that search engines can access. For example, marketing pages, company business sites, landing pages, sales pages, and so on, but also forums, help databases, and FAQs. And of course, some blog articles, help databases of any kind. It's not relevant at all for content behind any kind of authentication. So we have to log in first, and also short-lived content. So if you post about something that will be gone tomorrow, that won't work very well for SEO. So we have 3 pillars of SEO. The first one is on-page SEO. That's basically about content. Content is king. Yeah, that's a very well-known phrase, and people are saying always the same, but it's true. If you have good content, even though it's not optimized, if you have good content and people want to read it, that's a perfect step. And you can optimize as well as you try to, but if you don't have good content, people don't want to read what you write, they won't stay long on your website. Then, of course, user experience. If you have good content, but it's not easily accessible for people, or people have a hard time navigating around your website, they will leave. And then we come around keywords. So it goes in the similar direction like content. You have to find out what are the people searching. So you have to do some kind of keyword research. Find out why are people searching something? Do they want to buy something? Do they just want to inform themselves? There are a couple of options, and they're all around that keyword research thing. And then also meta tags, so that correctly advertising your page in the search engine result pages. But we'll come to that in a second. Then there's way more, but that's the on-page pillar. Then we have off-page. That is mainly about link building, so trying to get other people, pages to link to you, or also on social media. Then citations, that's similar to link building, but they don't have to link to you. They just have to say or write down your company name, your brand name, your product. And yeah, as I mentioned, social media marketing is also important there, but it's all not related to the page itself. But what it's about there is authority. If lots of people are linking to you saying, okay, you might be a trustworthy source, then Google also recognizes that. Best example, Wikipedia. And the last one is technical SEO, mostly about page speed, also security, of course, but then broken links, a very important topic, sitemap, and so on and so on. So there are a couple of technical points we want to pin down today. And we can't focus on all 3, so we focus on 2 of the pillars, on-page and technical. Why not off-page, you might wonder? Well, first of all, the time. And on-page and technical are way easier to get started, especially for developers. Off-page is more a marketing topic, but in theory, you could give a talk on each of these 3 pillars on their own. So yeah, we have it. And before we start with SEO and Nuxt.js, we want to talk about SEO and Vue.js at first. So if you have just simple plain Vue.js SPA, it generates HTML through JavaScript. So you have an empty HTML file. Empty means without content, but with the JavaScript assets. The JavaScript will be downloaded, and then it will generate the HTML. But what happens when you don't have JavaScript enabled, or maybe it's not loaded because of an error? This happens. In the best case, maybe just a blank page, but usually a loading spinner or something. And now the question is JavaScript a problem for search engines? So can search engines understand JavaScript? The short answer is yes for some. So in the past, that was a huge problem for search engines, but now especially Google can easily interpret and understand JavaScript. A couple of search engines have still problems, but those are the ones that are rarely used in the Western world, and there are just a few of them. So I knew a couple of months ago, Yandex, the Russian search engine, had a problem with JavaScript, but it also worked on it, and I think now it works out. But there are also some search engines popular in Asia, for example, that might still have these issues. So we'll keep on with Google as a search engine to focus on for the rest of the talk, but you have to check if you have, for example, a multilingual huge page, you have to assess whether some search engines can't understand JavaScript or not. All right, so if Google understands JavaScript, can Google fetch and index Vue.js SPAs? With indexing, I mean adding them to their search index. So if you search for something, your website will come up. And well, yes, but some meta tags aren't present. For example, if you share a link, you usually have like an image and title and description. That's not a thing when you use an SPA solely. Then a mistake in your JS could lead to indexing blank pages or to not indexing pages at all. HTML is not very fragile. If the browser sees invalid HTML, it will skip over it. But with JavaScript, it's not that easy. If it's executed and there's an error, it might break your whole page from 1 second to the other. Delayed content is also a pain point here. If you have content from third-party APIs and it's delayed, it might not get into the final index page. And last but not least, the most important thing here, I think, is indexing a page, so adding them to the search index in Google. That doesn't mean that the page ranks very well because of speed, because of other points. We'll come to that in a second. So that's the key point I would take away here. There are also a couple of Vue.js things. For example, the fragment router mode is bad for SEO. I think it's hash mode called standard by default. So using history mode would work out. And then we have a bit of extra work for multi-page applications. So TLDR, yes, but using just SPA is, in my opinion, not enough and not ideal for SEO. It can work, but solely relying on that is not enough, not recommended. So what else if not SPA? And you know the answer already. It's server-side rendering. We have 2 kinds of server-side rendering. We have on the fly, and we know Nuxt.js is capable of doing that with the universal mode and just running a node server. And we have server-side rendering at the build time, also known as Jamstack or static sites. And Debbie will talk about that in a couple of minutes. And again, Nuxt.js is capable of doing that, of course, but also VuePress or Gridsome, for example. And you could also run your own SSR setup, but, well, it takes lots of time to set it up and it will increase your work. Anyway, before we start with SEO, before you start with SEO improvements that I'll tell you in a second, you can do a few things and you should do a few things. First of all, you should set up your page in the Google Search Console. If you haven't done that, you can do it right now after the talk and of course after Debbie's talk as well. Set it up and you'll get lots of insights about your own pages. So for example, what keywords your page comes up in the search result pages for. So if people search for example, buy blue sneakers, will your web shop appear there? And also what is the average position, what pages are actually shown, and also the ratio of how many people clicked and how often it was shown. So lots of information. You can also submit your sitemap there. You get lots of insights and also warnings about potential issues of the page. So that's completely free. That's very easy to set up. And I definitely recommend to do that. The next thing is you could use an analysis tool to analyze user behavior, to track your goals. If your company has marketing departments, they mostly say, yeah, can you add this tracking pixel? Can you add this script? These are those things. A few options there. Google Analytics is very popular, but also Matomo. Of course, when you implement it, always think about GDPR compliance, especially when you're dealing with people in Europe. But in general, thinking about privacy is a good idea here, just as a side note. And last but not least, see it as a bonus. You can use a paid SEO tool like Moz, SEMrush, or Ahrefs to analyze the competition. As I said, this is a bonus, but you don't get data for the competition. You only get data for your page with the Google Analytics and Google Search Console. So if you wonder, for example, how the competition got that very good rank, you could analyze them with these tools. Also, all three companies have a very limited option on free tools. For example, Ahrefs has a very good backlink checker to see which pages actually link to your page. And SEMrush has a very small free tier and so on. So that might be also worth try to take a look at your competition. Okay, let's improve our SEO game. Of course, we'll use Nuxt.js for most of our code examples shown because it can be used for both Jamstack, dynamic SSR. It comes with vue-meta out of the box, and vue-meta will make our SEO efforts really enjoyable, I promise. If you don't use Nuxt.js for whatever reason, these examples can easily be applied to other frameworks as well. I tried to give you a good starting point, and there are tons of good articles about all these concepts, but having them like in a small collection is a good thing to see, okay, what can I do to improve my page or my project or my website? And I'll try to go from very general examples to very specific ones. And last but not least, again, users first. This is very important. So what is vue-meta? A Vue library to manage HTML metadata. Okay, so far so good. If you use it with plain Vue, that works. You can set, for example, the title, which is shown in the tab, or also the HTML attribute. So you have the HTML tag, and then you say language is EN for English, of course. This works in every component, and you can use this meta info object. In Nuxt, it looks very similar, but you can use a head object or function here. So this works roughly the same, besides it uses the head instead of the meta info property. Okay, let's get it on. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll go through it in the Q&A. And if I'm a bit too quick, I'm very sorry for that, because lots of content. I already cut a few things down and appended them as bonus slides, so you won't lose any content. But there are lots of things on the plate, and I hope I can cover them. And the info is digestible. If not, please tell me, and I'll help you out. Okay, then we have this pillar, and we say which SEO category it is. We have the effort measured in some orange diamonds. 1 orange diamond means low, and 5 means is very high. And you see, I'm not very good with CSS anyway. Let's get it on. Basic security, technical SEO, low effort. Please enable HTTPS if you haven't done it already. Very important. It's a ranking factor, and it's very easy to set up. We have Let's Encrypt. We have platforms like Netlify that give you, or Cloudflare that give it to you out of the box. Very easy to do, and crucial for good SEO, but also crucial for user experience. You don't want to see like a not secure sign in Chrome or Firefox up there. Then setting security headers. There, again, very good talks about that, like no-sniff setting that will enforce basic browser securities to the standard, besides the standard ones. And of course, keeping your CMS passwords, your staff account, and so on in good shape, meaning like secure passwords, password managers, and so on. This is a very low-hanging fruit, and you basically do this because of trust. You want to create trust for your visitors. So they see, okay, it's secure to serve here, it's secure to put in data in that contact form, and so on. Mobile friendliness. Another technical point, the effort really depends on how much you've done already, and it's a must-have nowadays. Yeah, a lot of traffic comes from mobile devices. Mobile devices get more and more popular, more and powerful, and again, it's a ranking factor. If a page isn't mobile friendly, Google will penalize that in their algorithm that nobody knows, but they say it's bad if you're not mobile friendly. And as I said, the effort depends a bit on how far you are, if you have a mobile design or not. That's also a really easy test for each page. You get the link to the slides afterwards as well, by the way. So you can just click there, enter URL, and it'll tell you, is it good, is it not good? No problem. Core Web Vitals, that's a quite new one. And yeah, you see I'm horrible with CSS, unless it's Tailwind. Tailwind is amazing, but it's not the topic. Another technical point, and if you have heard about Core Web Vitals, you know it's a very new initiative by Google, and they phrase it as their essential metrics for a healthy site. These will be a ranking factor as well. They will influence the so-called user experience page signal or search signal. So give the search algorithm a signal if the page or the website is user-friendly, user experience-friendly or not. And that means that there are a couple of measurements: first input delay, largest contentful paint, cumulative layout shift, and depending on whether they're very good or not, the Core Web Vitals will be fulfilled or not. You can read all about it on web.dev/vitals. Very important, and it's easy to measure. We even have a Nuxt module for that will directly report that measurements to Google Analytics. Right. Text compression. Something most people don't care about because it's usually standard, and I understand that. I haven't done that either for a long time. But it's a must-have. Usually you have gzip compression. You might know the term already. But there's also a new one which is called Brotli, or Brotli, however, and it's both faster and it leads to smaller files. So plus it's also supported by all modern browsers. So everything beside Internet Explorer. That means it improves the page speed actually if you use Brotli instead of gzip. And again, there's a nifty tool called brotli.pro. And you can check if your site supports Brotli, and if not, how to change that. In Nuxt, gzip is enabled out of the box if you use dynamic SSR. If you use static site generation, it depends on your platform or web provider. Brotli can be enabled as well through Nuxt, but as I said, it's usually a job of your platform or your web service. So Netlify, for example, has Brotli now, finally. Cloudflare has a very easy switch to enable Brotli. And also there's an option to pre-generate compressed assets to save time. So they are not compressed on the fly, but they're compressed before deploying. So they can be compressed as good as possible, and you don't care about speed because it's done on build time. Broken links and redirects. Very important topic, not easy though. The first bullet point is easy. Make sure that you don't link to broken pages. So assess your content every now and then and see, is that guide I'm linking here broken or not? Or easier, you can automate that. You can have crawlers that just check outgoing links, are they broken or not? Also, are links broken to your page? So do you have some external links that are broken because you removed the page or renamed the page? Should not happen. So please set up redirects for them. Very important. Otherwise, you lose some link juice, so-called. So some link power other sites give your site. And talking about redirects, avoiding redirect chains is important. So don't redirect from A to B to C, but from A to C. That's it. Also happens often when you transition from system to system. Again, here the effort depends a bit on the size and the content site and content size. And there are a couple of good crawlers to help there. One is called Screaming Frog. It's also linked if you click on the icon, and the backlink checker from Ahrefs, I already mentioned that one. So redirects are possible through your web server or platform provider again, so Apache, Nginx, whatever, or Netlify, for example, providing also redirects, Cloudflare, and so on. But if you don't want to do it that way, you can also realize that through Nuxt's own redirect module. Redirects, for example, for Netlify look like that, very easy. So I redirect some very long URL, and this is actually a live example from my blog where URLs were horribly long to clean and nice URLs with a 301 code. So that means permanent redirect. Talking about links, canonical links. Canonical links, you might have heard that, and people say, okay, we need all the canonical links. Yeah, important. You should set a canonical link for every page. This looks like that in plain HTML. Link rel canonical, and then the href. Nice. What is a canonical link? A canonical link represents the preferred link or version of the page. So think about that. If you have some pages with almost the same content, for example, you have, again, an e-commerce shop, and you talk about some cool sneakers. Now you have a special site where, again, advertise just these sneakers because they're in special sale now. These should have the same canonical URL because they have the same content. Especially for e-commerce, it's very important. So Google knows which site to prefer, which site it should link. Usually the one that's not the special offer, because that won't stay very long most of the time. And yeah, one example looks like that. Those should have the shoes URL as the canonical one. Okay, it's also great to enforce trailing slash. So decide whether you want to have a slash or no slash at the end. I'll skip the next slides due to time. You can read about that afterwards. And the implementation in Nuxt is quite easy. You have a layout, and then you just paste in that code. Just kidding. You can do that though. So you get the base URL from somewhere. Either you hard-coded in, you use an env variable, a runtime config, whatever. Then you get the current path, and then you decide on whether you want to have a trailing slash or not. In this case, I want it. So if it ends with a slash, leave it as is. If not, put in trailing slash behind on line 9. And then I just return that link canonical object in this case, or link array with that canonical rel object in the head function, and that's it. Okay, sitemap, very important. Create a sitemap for all relevant URLs. The more URLs I have, and the better your internal link structure is, the less you have to care about a sitemap. But if they're linked very well, that's a good indication that you really need a sitemap. And in general, you can just add one because it's unheard. And it's actually the opposite. It can be done automatically. We have a Nuxt module for that. And if you have many URLs, you also have to split them up into separate sitemaps. And you can also create sitemaps for images and videos, so-called multimedia sitemaps. Yeah, as I said, we have a Nuxt module for that. It catches all static URLs. Dynamic ones can be provided through API or file system. I'll leave that for you as well because of time reasons and skipping through that. You can read it afterwards, so you don't lose anything in content. Then optimize your assets. Very good talks about that, so I'll go briefly over it. Optimize responsive images, format and size, remove metadata, compress, load lazily, the typical things. Also improve JavaScript for code splitting and so on. Nuxt will do a lot of things already here. Also caching and hashing, fingerprinting your assets. Again, Nuxt is your friend here. And using descriptive file names for images is also important. You can also combine these two things. So you have a descriptive file name, but still you also have the hash in here. So you see that in that image that I have both, and that works very well. Then page structure. You should create a logical and hierarchical structure for your page, but also for URLs. Try to not nest too deeply. It's not always possible, but more than 3 clicks is too deep, usually. Make category pages worth indexing. So make sure that you just don't list all the blog posts like I do in my blog right now, because I'm lazy. Please just write what is the category about, why you write about it, what might be important. Also for e-commerce, a very good improvement point. And again, you can link topic pages internally where possible. When you're talking in one article about something else, link it if you have something there. And the most common structure is a pyramid structure. So you have a home, you have category, not cat in terms of cats, 1 and 2. And then you have, again, subpages. You can also have subcategories, but not more. Like linking too deep is not good, as I said. Coming from page structure to pyramid structure, page structure to URL structure, use short and descriptive URLs. As I showed before, I redirected mine from the blog because they weren't good. Remove stop words, and similar to canonical URLs, enforce trailing slash or move them. Decide for one version. And you can use URLs to place keywords inside. For example, /blog / my cool new Nuxt content module journey, and then remove the stop words and so on. But place in Nuxt content, for example, if you write about Nuxt content module. Also, avoiding query parameters. It doesn't look very good, and users won't understand it unless they're programmers, for example. Always use hyphens as delimiters, please. Don't use underscores or whatever. And decide for non-www or www in front. Okay, so this URL, not really good. And this can be improved. So we're going through that and see, oh, now it's descriptive. It has underscores. It's not really good. Now we're almost there. Almost. And this one is really nice. This one looks like a clean short URL people will have in mind and will remember. Okay. Consistent trailing slashes with Nuxt, easily achievable by just setting it in Nuxt config. The only caveat is you have to set up redirects for the non/URLs in this case. All right. Semantic HTML. Use it. That's it. Just use semantic HTML. Whatever you're doing, use semantic HTML. Use an anchor tag when you change pages on click, not a button with some method. Use an anchor tag, but use a button when it's actionable and when it's not a link. Also, please use nav, footer, main, and so on where applicable, and use headings appropriately and in hierarchy. Don't do something like that with Nuxt link and tag it as a div and then do on click.native something else. No, just don't do this, please. Don't. Same for alt tags. Please provide alt tags. Don't stuff keywords in there. Describe what the images are showing. Of course, you can use keywords, but don't just stuff them in there because it's an alt tag. Describe them properly, and this will also improve accessibility. As I said, users first, not only thinking about search engines. If users understand it, search engines will understand it too, usually. And you can retrieve them through AI if you want. Last chapter, then we're through meta tags. In the end, you can set, and you should set, UTF-8 char set as well as the initial viewport easily. And then you have to find the ideal title and meta description for each page. So the title marked in yellow here, and the blue part is the meta description. Google, in the end, decides what to show as a meta description. What you provide is just a suggestion, but it's really good if you provide it, because if Google doesn't know what to take, it will usually take the meta description. And you can also extract some parts if it fits better to the search query, but please provide it, make it unique, make it understandable. Testing will be necessary for that, but it's really worth it. And for previewing links, for example, when sharing on Discord, WhatsApp, Slack, please use OG tags. And we'll see that in a second. Again, effort depends on website size and how far you are. So setting, char set, and viewport. Those are the HTML tags for the char set and the viewport. So you usually want UTF-8 to have some umlauts. In Germany, we have these very strange characters, and you want to display them properly if users use them. So use UTF-8 char set. And the viewport, it should be scaled just at 1. Please don't restrict scrolling or something for people mobile devices. This is very annoying to all the people using the website. Don't do that unless you have a really good reason. Don't. The good thing is you can set these in your Nuxt config or through the NuxtJS PWA module, which exports a helper function or a helper for that. Using the latter, the PWA module will actually provide it by default, but it comes with other neat shortcuts too. Okay, so the title, similar or an easy format template is you have your primary keyword and your secondary keyword in there somewhere, and in the end, the brand name delimited by some single sign, or character. So this is an example, again, from my blog. Looks fine. I don't have a brand name. It's just my blog URL. Good. Suggested length is 50 to 60 characters. It's usually measured in pixels, so it's not a distinct character length, but between 50 and 60, it's all right. Again, you can test here. You can leverage vue-meta's title template, but I'll leave it again in the slides here and don't go through it because of time. But it's not very difficult. You can take a look at it. And if you have questions, again, please go ahead and ask them. Also, you can always ask me on Twitter or wherever you try to contact me. I'll try to answer. Meta description. That's the part where I really advertise besides the title, of course. So you really want to write a unique and compelling description. It's not a ranking factor, but if the user reads it or the people that are searching, they read it and they think, okay, I want to click there, I want to know more, go for it. Don't make it too clickbaity either, because when people leave after clicking, it's not a good signal as well. So a good description means a high CTR, high click-through rate, which is just the factor from how often the page is shown in the search engine result pages and how often people click it on. And of course, define descriptions in the page components of Nuxt, because they're representing the actual pages. So that makes sense here. Okay. Sorry. This is not everything. Actually, there are lots of more things. hreflang, anchor text, structured data, local SEO, whatever. There's so much more to explore. But that's not part of the talk, and that's more advanced. But you can read lots of good things about all these topics. Last thing is what to do after changing. You now applied all these things. You wrote the best meta description ever. What to do now? monitoring. Always monitor what happens. Are the CTR rates changing? Are people staying longer on the pages, for example? And also you can resubmit changed pages through GSC, for the Google Search Console, for quicker updates. If you say, okay, I wrote a new article, please index it right now. It won't happen right now, but a couple of hours. Again, also being patient is important. SEO takes time until results show up, sometimes even over half a year, especially when transition a large page, it will take time to climb up again. Conclusion, SEO is no rocket science, first of all. Vue.js and SEO can be a love story, especially with Nuxt.js, if you leverage the SSR benefits. Always monitor changes to catch mistakes, find chances to improve, and so on. And last but not least, the only two constants in SEO are it's not a one-time thing, and as in web development, things change quickly and very often. That's it. Thanks a lot for having me and for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was awesome. I'll have a quick look. I think we don't have a lot of unanswered question in the comments.
Okay.
Florent, stop me if I'm missing one. But I was wondering, one question for you. Like, okay, so you just said that SEO changes often.
Yeah.
Is there a place we should look at and to keep up to date?
So first of all, there are Google Webmaster Guidelines. You can read these. So that might be a good point there. Google has lots of information. Then if you really want to be up to date on a daily basis, there are a couple of pages like SEO Roundtable, for example. And again, similar to the web development, you have few people tweeting all the changes and all the things. And even people from Google tweet regularly, and they create statements about several things. So that might be a good place as well. For example, John Mueller is one of the people, Martin Splitt, Gary Illies. I can throw in links as well there.
Okay, awesome. Definitely, because that's what I understand. It constantly evolves. But the thing I like also from what you said is that it's basically, if it's nice for the user, it's going to be nice for Google in the browser, the bot too. So as long as we keep that in mind, I think it's very helpful. And we definitely, like I think Florent said in the comments, that we have a lot of work for vue-montreal.org. After this talk, we'll take each points you have in your slides. And the slides will be made available on vue-montreal.org in this events page. So thank you, Alexander. Like, people think thanks you too a lot in there.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and glad you liked it. As I said, if you have any more questions, please feel free to just shoot me over a DM or write me on Discord, and we'll figure something out.
Awesome, thanks a lot. And on this, I'll segue to our open mic. As I said, if you have something to share, just simply share it in the comments. And if you have a meetup we should be on the lookout for, or if you're looking for employees or anything, that's the moment to put it in the comments. And you can put that now or a bit later also, as the chat actually log will be available online with the actual stream. On that, like, just a quick reminder, if you weren't there at the beginning, for like the my open mic suggestions is for you to jump in the Slack channel of Vue Montreal. It's a very nice place to get help and help people and talk about Vue.js. And I think there's already a few people who joined in since the beginning of this presentation. Then we thank you. That's awesome.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that it's under control in the comments. And why not simply start with Debbie? Are you good?
I'm ready.
Yeah? Okay. So our second presentation today. Let me see here. Yeah, our second presentation it will be by the head of learning and developer advocate at Nuxt.js. we're extremely happy also to have her with us. She has a over 10-year experience of front-end development. She is an international speaker also. I saw her this last November in Toronto at VueConf 2019. And she is, okay, get ready for this. She is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. She's a Google developer expert. She's a Cloudinary media developer expert. She teaches at Vue School. You should really check out Vue School if you have never done that. It's an awesome place for Vue courses online. And she also teaches on Ultimate courses. So I think there's a common thread here. She likes to help people and help developers. And that's basically another proof today that she will do with us. And for today's talk, she will go talk about the Nuxt.js capability of doing static websites. Static websites, as we'll see, is very good for cost reduction and also carbon footprint reduction. So among other things. So on this, with a talk titled Full Static with Nuxt, please welcome Debbie O'Brien. Debbie?
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see my slides, yeah?
Yes, it's on.
Perfect.
So we're ready to go. Okay, so full static with Nuxt. Now, if any of you have seen my talk before on full static, this is the same talk, but completely different because I did all the slides this morning, right? So it's all been updated with everything that's come new in Nuxt. So basically, yeah, some kind of spoilers in there too. So I really hope you enjoy it. So thank you for the introduction. That was like probably the most nicest introduction I've ever received. So thank you very much. And yet pretty much I don't have to say anything else. But my Twitter's there if you want to follow me, Debs_O'Brien. So yeah, do check me out on Twitter and ask me anything you want, any questions as well. And throughout the talk, do put your questions in the chat and I will go through them at the end. So let's talk about the Nuxt benefits. Now you're probably all going to say we all know the benefits of Nuxt. So I'm going to give you some other benefits of Nuxt. Automatic components. Did you know we now have automatic components? So this is a new module that was released literally a few weeks ago, and it's going to be included automatically in the next update of Nuxt. So the next version of Nuxt will have this by default. You just have to activate it if you want to use it. What does the automatic components do? It basically means you don't have to write import statements for your components anymore. So that's kind of cool because it's just quicker development, and it means your JS part is like so much more reduced, especially when you're adding loads of components. And it's got like lazy components as well. So you just put the word lazy as a prefix, and then they're going to be lazy loaded as well. So really, really cool module. And you should seriously check that out and start using that. Vue components in Markdown. Did you know you can have Vue components in our Markdown files now with the new content module? So that's really, really cool. Before creating Markdown files and working with Nuxt, it wasn't that great. And now with the content module, we can put Vue components in Markdown, and that is awesome. A live preview in static mode. What? Yeah, I'm going to show you that in later. So hang on to that one because that's kind of just really cool. And you can regenerate only your content. What? Yes. Regenerate only your content without regenerating your whole site. Oh, yes. That's what I'm going to go through. So stay with me. So why static? Well, when we go static, we don't need a server, right? So without having a server, it's cheaper and it's safer because there's a smaller attack vector. So this is a bonus straight away. And you can deploy on Netlify and other static hosting services. So much cheaper. And you've got better offline support as well because everything's already built. And as Alex already mentioned, basically with the single page applications, they need to be done right there and then in the browser. So the offline support isn't there because it needs the JavaScript to get it run. So with static sites, much better offline support. And it is better performance because with single page applications, they have to be, everything has to be downloaded on the initial page load. Can be a little bit slower, then it's fast. But with static sites, bang, they're just all ready to go. So much better performance. And it reduces the carbon footprint. And we have seen over these last couple of months how important reducing the carbon footprint has been. We have like cleaner air automatically from this whole lockdown. So just getting rid of all them servers and all that data that doesn't need to be saved in a server is going to help that as well. So that's kind of cool. But static is very static. Or is it? I'm going to show you that static Is it really static? Not really. You can do so much with static sites right now, and I'm going to show you exactly what you can do. So with APIs, for example, we have all these really cool APIs. You know, we can use Netlify forms to have a form in our front end with no backend experience, and we can send a form. So that's kind of really, really cool. CMSs, so we can have headless CMSs. Authorization with, say, auth-o, for example, that can all be done on a static site. And e-commerce, yes, we can use we can build a shop on a static site, which is really, really, really cool. And you can just use an API to call out to basically make those payments. Headless CMS, there are so many of them. You've got Contentful, you've got Craft CMS, you've got Storyblock, you've got Sanity, and you've even got WordPress if you really wanted to use it. But we also have the content module. Now, the content module was released literally a few weeks ago, and it is absolutely amazing. So what does the content module do? So basically, you create a content folder, and you put all your markdown files into this folder. Now, once they're in that folder, you can fetch them. So you fetch your content with queries, and you can use where and only and sort by. So you can basically say fetch only the title or fetch only the date and sort it by the date, etc. So you can fetch whatever you want, and you can easily then display it on your page or a component or your layout. Putting all your markdown files in a content folder just makes your life easier, and you can use YAML inside it as well. So you can even I actually created a quiz inside my markdown in the YAML, and then just uses a component, a Vue component, to then render that quiz using the YAML for all the questions and answers. What? Yeah, you can have Vue components in your markdown files. So that's really, really cool, and I highly encourage you to check it out. And if you're going to use it, it comes with a full text search, so you can literally search for all your titles. It will kind of once you have a title in there, a H1, H2, H3, it's going to search for all those. So that is just cool. It's done out of the box for you. Previous and next. So if you're building a blog, for example, or a documentation website, and you want to go to the next page, the previous, etc., bang, it's done for you. Easy. It is so cool. So highly encourage you to check it out. Just to give you a quick example, this is basically what it looks like. So you can see here in the _slug.vue, so I've got one page, one dynamic page, and in my template, I'm using the Nuxt content, that's the component, and then I'm basically saying document equals doc. That could be whatever you want. It could be page, it could be article, it could be whatever. You just name that and you call it. So then in your script tag, you're doing the export default, and you're using async data. You're passing in $content. That's really important. And I'm passing in the params that goes passed into the context. And then I'm using const doc. Remember above I've used doc, so that's why it's called doc. If it was article, it would be const article. And then await that content, and I'm passing in the slug. And if I don't receive anything, I just put index, and I'm basically using fetch to fetch it. I return that doc so I can then use it in my template. Simple as that. That is it. Then you have everything in your markdown file, bang, on your site. Easy. So you're going to say, right, I've created all these markdown files, like maybe 100, blog posts or articles or documentation pages, etc. But now I've got to generate all those, right? Because we're going to build static sites. So how am I going to generate all those dynamic routes? Well, Nuxt.js now comes with a Nuxt crawler in the next version, Nuxt 2.13, which is going to be released. I'm going to say tomorrow, but tomorrow could be Thursday or Friday. So, but tomorrow. The Nuxt crawler, basically, the dynamic routes are automatically generated. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to create that function in the routes in the Nuxt config anymore. It's basically going to crawl the link tags. So once you have a link, like a menu that's going to, that you'll be able to click to get those blog posts, or it's linked somewhere, the Nuxt crawler is going to work and get that for you. Now, if you're thinking on the content module and you're saying, but how am I going to get all those links? So you could basically have the main page, the home page, the navigation component, whatever, and then you could fetch all those pages, but fetch only the title. Once you fetch only the title, you've already got basically the slug that comes with it. So you then basically put in your link with the title and then the slug, and then bang, that's it, done. So really, really simple, really, really easy to do. And the Nuxt crawler, it just makes life amazing. But it's not just for blogs, right? Static sites, we don't just want to build static sites for blogs. And what if you have a load of data? Like the content module is amazing, but sometimes you need, not just markdown files. Sometimes you have loads of data. So for example, I speak at a lot of conferences, as you know, and I kind of consider this as data. I need to put in, where I'm speaking, what date, what it's called, what the title is, etc. And I put all this in onto my website. So I like to have this in a database because it's data. So for data, I'm using Hasura. I really love Hasura because I'm not a backend developer and I can basically build like an API without having to have any backend knowledge. So this is amazing and it's really simple. It's a really nice user interface. You create a table and then basically put in conferences, for example, your column names, column type, default value if you want, and then you just fill it in with all your data. You can browse it, modify, delete, etc. So really, really easy. You can see the buttons there, just to edit, to delete, etc. So really easy to use. And then that basically gives you a GraphQL endpoint. So this is the endpoint I need. Remember, GraphQL is one endpoint, not like REST. So that one endpoint contains all the data I need. So simple, I just have to call that endpoint. So how am I going to now call this in my Nuxt application? What do I do? So you might think Apollo, right? Yeah, you could use Apollo. And before I was using Apollo, but Apollo is a big, it's a big module. And if you're only just fetching data, you don't need Apollo. Apollo is great if you're doing all these other stuff, but if you're just fetching data, you don't need Apollo. You can just create a plugin. So I'm going to show you how I created a plugin to get all my data from Hasura. So I basically created a function and I passed in the HTTP module into the context and I use the inject. So what the inject method does, it injects it in so I can use it then throughout my application. So I've called it Hasura and I basically say my variable is Hasura and that's going to be equal to the HTTP module. I'm going to create and I'm going to prefix the URL with my endpoint. So you could put this in your end file, for example, or you can just put it here. I put it here for this example. So this is my endpoint. I'm prefixing the URL with that because that's what I need to get before I get all my other data, like my conference table or my workshop table, for example. And then I inject the Hasura, and I'm just using bind here to just like create another function. And once it's in that inject method, I can then use it in the context in my application. So that's kind of really cool. So how do I use it then? I call the GraphQL API by basically using async data. I'm passing in app in the context. So then I have access to what I created using inject, so to my Hasura plugin. So obviously you've got to register that plugin in your Nuxt config. So then I say const data equals await the app.hasura, $hasura. And then I'm just going to say query, print the query. And I'm going to return conferences because I want the conferences table. If I wanted the workshop table, I would just say return workshops, data.workshops. Here I'm returning the conferences, so it's data.conferences. And then that's it. That's simple. I can then use it in my template, just like you'd use any other data. So, you know, a V4, and then basically just print out what you want to print out. So with the GraphQL Playground, it can help you to build that query. If you don't know how to build queries, basically, this is in Hasura, right? It gives you this GraphQL Playground, and you basically have like the Explorer, and you can actually just like literally tick boxes. So literally select the boxes you want, then you press the play button, and it's going to give you your query. So you can also type that query if you want to, or you can just check boxes. Once you have that query, you can test it out by pressing the play button to see if that's exactly what you want. When you press the play button, you can see, right, I've got my date, got my country, and I've got my name. So that's exactly the data I wanted. I'm now getting that data, so that query is perfect. I can then copy that query, just copy it straight away, and I can then put it into my application. So how to add the query? Literally, I'm importing the GraphQL tag, and I'm importing print from the GraphQL language printer so that I can print it correctly. And then I'm basically saying const query equals the GraphQL tag, and then I'm ordering it by date, and I'm getting my date, my country, and my name. And then in my template, I have access to this. So it's really as simple as that. So I've now got all my data, and it's now a static site. It's coming from my API. And basically what it does, because it's a static site, it's not going to call the API on every page change like it used to do. With the new static module, everything is going to be saved in a payload in a static folder. So you can see here, dev.codes, and then I've got the Nuxt folder. I've got a static folder. I've got this number, which is what's referencing the special number. It's going to like, you know, differentiate between each one. And then I've got conferences, and I've got my payload.js. So that is my API call already with all that data that I've requested. And that's now saved and cached in the static folder as a payload.js. So that means when you're building your website, as you're building it, it's going to call up to that API. It's going to get everything it needs, and it's going to store it in a payload.json file. And now when you go to your network tab, you're not going to have access to that data. You're not going to see it because you're just going to see the payload.js file. Okay, so what if you want to like modify your data? You know, say you're working with other people and you want to like add something, you don't know if it's going to look all right, and you want to see it first. You don't want to actually like, you know, build your application again just to check if it's okay, and then you see it's a mistake and then you like unbuild it. And that's kind of been a bit annoying, right? So what do you do in those circumstances? Well, you can preview the changes now with the Nuxt static module in the Nuxt version 2.13. We can preview changes, right? I know, this is so cool. I'm going to show you. I've made a little video to show you because my site is actually using the static module. It's using the Nuxt Edge and using all the cool new things. So I can like test out if it works before they release it. So with this, basically, I'm going to show you now. This is my website here. And you can see the network tab. So you'd open the network tab, and basically I've got like a payload.js. So I don't have access to my API anymore because it's already stored all the data in a payload.js. So I'm going to show you with this video if it works. Let me see. Does it work? Hoping it does. I'm not sure if you're seeing this because I don't see it on the YouTube thing, which I think you can't actually see it, which is really annoying. So I'm going to just have to explain it. You can't see it. Sure you can't.
It moves. It moves.
Oh, it is moving. Great. It's not moving on mine. It's moving on yours. That's brilliant. So basically, as it's moving, you're watching it and I'm talking you through it. You can see it's calling the static folder, right? And then if I go up to my URL and I'm going to put preview equals true, right? So query parameter, preview equals true. It's going to get what I have put into my API. It's going to get that new data. I now have access to my GraphQL endpoint. It's calling that. You can see that it's coming from Hasura, and I can see all my data. And it's like, wow, bang, there. I can actually access everything. I can see everything. I can then go into Hasura. I can make those changes. I can preview it again. And I can say, that's exactly what I want. And then, you know, once you take away that preview, you can see you're getting the old content back again. The static site is back. So that is really, really, really powerful because you can preview your changes right there. That's amazing, right? It is, oh, it's my favorite feature. I think it's just so cool. So this is really, really great, right? Now, what if you wanted to generate an update? What if you didn't want to preview all the time? Because, you know, maybe you're like me and you never make mistakes, right? So you don't need to preview things. You want to just generate it every time you add new data. So you can do that in Hasura as well by creating an event trigger. So basically in the events tab, you create a new trigger and you'll get something like this. And you basically put in the trigger names. You can call it, you know, update conference table, for example. And then you choose like which table you want to update. And then what do you want to do? Insert, update, delete. When you want to run a build, on what command? On the insert, on update, on delete, on all of them, on just one of them, etc. And then you need to put in the webhook URL. So where do you get the webhook URL from? So that comes from your hosting provider. So I'm using Netlify. So in Netlify, I go to the build hooks section. I put in my build hook name. So call it whatever you want, Hasura conference, etc. And then I'm using the master branch. You could use the dev branch if you wanted to. And I press save. Once I do that, I then get the URL, right? So I've got this, this URL from Netlify, and I then put that into my webhook URL in Hasura. So once I put this in, this is a test one, don't copy it because it's not going to work. I just did it in case someone like, you know, try to use up all my bills and stuff. So I was, you know, cautious. So yeah, put that in because every time you save data, it's going to run a build. So just remember that if you're going to be updating data all the time, that's probably not a good idea. Maybe you don't want to do this. But if you do, if you're just like doing it, you know, randomly or inserting data, etc., this is really, really great. So put this in your webhook URL. And then basically you can see like the deployment is coming from Netlify and it's saying deploy triggered by hook Hasura event trigger, right? So you can see it was done by that instead of like by Git pushing your code, for example. So this is really, really cool. So the Nuxt static module, it's so amazing. I love it. I'm in love already. It calls the API and page change, not anymore. It calls the payload and page change. So if you've been using, like you've been generating static sites before, you know that every time you've changed the page, you were previously like loading the API and you could see it in the network tab and it was calling that API because it wasn't really fully static, right? Now we are fully static. What that means is everything is generated at build time. Now, every time we change the page, we're going to call the payload on page change. And now you're going to say to me, oh, hang on a minute, you just said it was fully static. And now you're telling me it's going to like, you know, call the payload and page change. What are you telling me, Debbie? Right. So what I mean is on the first time it's built, right? It's built there with all the HTML in there. So it's great for SEO because it's already got everything. And then it does call the payload on client-side navigation, or if you refresh the page. Why would we do that? By separating the content from the code, we can regenerate the content because we can just regenerate that payload JSON file without having to regenerate your whole site. And that is powerful. That's what creates Nuxt.js and makes the static sites so powerful and so fast, because we can regenerate content instead of regenerating the whole site. That's cool. So Nuxt.js static module, you don't have to expose your API public because now it's in a payload and nobody's going to see all your API anymore. You can decide when to publish new content from your API by regenerating your content only. So you've seen how we've been able to preview it. So how would you regenerate it? So I'm going to show you the two commands that we're going to use now to basically create your static sites. And they're split up into two commands for a reason. Because if you just use one of the commands, you're going to generate just your content, right? You're not going to rebuild. If you add a new page, for example, that page is not going to be found because that's building your application, right? But if you were to change the text, if you were to change the markdown, if you were to change something in your API, then that's going to rebuild the content. And that's a lot faster because it doesn't have to go through Webpack. So it's lightning fast. It's amazing. Fully static is much faster. API calls with latency, so it always takes a little bit longer. So just calling a payload folder, bang, your data is there much faster. And the payload files are cached and offline support with a PWA module. So super, super, super fast, super performant, and super good for SEO, like Alex said, is super important. So to convert to a static site, again, as I said, this is going to be released literally tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, it could be Thursday or Friday, but hopefully tomorrow, if everything goes well. And literally, you just have to put target static, and then you use Nuxt build and Nuxt export. The reason for these two commands is the build is going to call the Webpack, which is going to build your application, and the export is the one that's going to create all your content, all those payload files. So if, for example, you have an application and you're only interested in regenerating content because your application's built, then you could just call the Nuxt export each time. So you could, change your Netlify command and just get rid of Nuxt build, keep Nuxt export in there, and it will never build a new page, but it will always build that new content. So that's kind of really, really, really powerful. And especially when you're developing as well, it's like super fast. Just Nuxt export, bang, you see it all, seconds, amazing. So you can still have a single page application inside a static site. So this is still possible if you need it using the generate command. You put fallback for, in Netlify needs 404.html, could be 200 HTML in Azure Static Web Apps, for example, and then exclude the pages you want to exclude. So you could have a booking folder. You can use a regex expression here, or you could have an admin page that you don't want as a static site, and you just basically say, don't make this a static site, and then that's going to be on client-side navigation. Obviously, you're not going to have as good SEO for that, but maybe you don't need that. So yeah, why static sites? Basically, static sites, no server, it's cheaper, it's safer. There is better offline support, there is better performance, and it reduces the carbon footprint. Think static. And seriously, when this is released, I want you to all try it out, and I'd love to hear your feedback on what it's like, because the new static module, it is amazing. So are you Nuxt? I really hope you are. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you. I put my hat on now. So hot, but oh, yeah. Yay!
Nice.
So, if anyone has any questions.
That is very awesome. I think we do have a few questions, a lot of mind blown, including mine.
Well, a lot of win, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know that guy from somewhere.
You want to ask the question, and I just show the question on the screen to me?
Go ahead. I'll let you go through the question.
Okay. So it's a question of me. Okay. I think it respects the tree shaking. But does it really the Nuxt module component?
Yes.
And I remember I had some issue with dynamic components. There is an issue on that.
It's
and
not
do
an
you
issue.
Have any news?
It's not an issue. It's just that it's not possible to be able to know if it's a dynamic component which one it's going to use. So you're going to have to write an import statement if you're going to use dynamic components. So that's the is component, etc. Right? So like basically it scans your page and sees what it's being used. So it can't scan a dynamic component to see what component you're going to use. So then you're going to have to write the import for that. So that's the only time you would need it. But all other times, components, headers, footer, and it's I mean, it uses Webpack, right? So thanks to Webpack's tree shaking, it's actually gonna even be better for you, because if you're using a component on 2 pages, it's gonna create that shared bundle thanks to Webpack. So then it's not gonna it's gonna be more performant because it's gonna have that bundle with those 2 components that are then gonna be shared between the 2 pages that need it. So it's super amazing.
Okay, thank you. So I have a new question from Aurélien Roux. Do you have any e-commerce extension you recommend?
If it's through payments, Snipcart for sure. If you're building a shop, then I haven't built a shop, but what shop, Alex, would you recommend? Shopify?
I've used Snipcart in the past. It's really nice. I haven't used Shopify yet, but I know a couple of people who roll with it and we're very happy. And if you only want to do payment and want to do the rest for yourself, like you can also program your card logic inside Nuxt directly. You can use Stripe for the payment, of course, which is the golden standard, really nice API and documentation. So yeah, but I think you can build an online shop, an e-commerce shop with lots of headless CMS combined with Snipcart, for example. I know there are good examples with Storyblock in Snipcart, but also with Sanity and whatnot. So a couple of options. Probably try them out and see what suits you most.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Damien Lamoureux. I'm not a fan of Vue components in .imd files. What about color syntax? I have the
Damien, what do you mean you're not a fan? You gotta just try it. It's very useful though. When you start using it, I was the same. I'm not really a fan of it. Like, oh, Markdown is Markdown, and your HTML is HTML. But you can also you can do it separate. You can have like part 1, part 2, and then like fetch part 1, and then you have your component, and then fetch part 2. But putting it all in the one does make it easier. But it's completely a use case choice, and whatever works better for you. What about color syntax? Yeah, so it comes with the Prism.js. So basically that's being used, and you can use different themes, and then you can also style them as well. Yeah, so that's all in the documentation in the content module. So if you check that out. I'm just using a theme because I'm kind of lazy and I find it easier just to throw a Prism.js theme in, and then it's all done for me. But play away with it, and yeah, you can do it all.
Maybe it's also about the syntax highlighting inside the IDE. So I'm not sure what the aim of the question was, but maybe that's also a point, so that you don't have maybe Vue.js component syntax highlighting when you use VS Code with an MD file and putting in your Vue components there.
Ah, okay. I meant like in the actual output. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It works for me. It depends on the extension in VS Code. So yeah.
Yeah, but I guess there are a couple of options because VS Code is very extendable. So I think if that's really an issue, someone could write a plugin, for example, or maybe even in addition for Vito. For the language server or something like that?
I'm literally saying I'm using the component is somewhere else, right? It's in a Vue file, but then I'm just using it, importing it into the MD file. So really it's just quiz and then passing in the params, that's it. So it's not like or passing in the props, sorry. So it's not like actually I'm coding the component in the Markdown, right? The component's in the component, I'm just using it in the Markdown file, if that helps understand things.
It can become very complex though, if you have many nested components or something, but of course you can avoid that if you have them in some other parent component. That's right.
Yeah, but then as I said, you just fetch one part of the text and then fetch the other part. So you can do whatever you want. That's the cool thing.
I think we have done with the question. I have one more question. We just spoke about it. What about the new fetch API? Should you consider to not use async data anymore and use the new fetch? Or do we have to use both?
No, it depends. So they're both different. So if you're using a page, I would use async data because they're different in the sense that with fetch, your page is going to be created And so it depends, again, if you're using single page applications as well. And it depends on many things, right? But fetch is different to async data, and fetch is very good for your components, for your layouts, for example. And I would still use async data on the pages. And also remember with async data, so you got access to like the context, for example, which you might need. So I don't know, Alex, if you want to share your thoughts on that as well, but that would be my idea anyway.
It's a trap question.
It's a tricky question. I think it partially comes down to matter of preference, and if it's worth for you, your project team, and so on to adapt in your syntax, similar to the composition API we now have with Vue 3 in some manner. I personally would still say use fetch wherever possible, because you have the this option as well, which makes it very easy. You have fetch on server, so you don't have any penalties in terms of SEO. So if the call comes from a Node.js server, fetch will be executed there if you specify that. But of course, you can use async data if you say, I don't need that error handling or that loading skeleton component in there. I just want a data and that's it. But I personally would say go for fetch unless you have a good reason not to.
Yeah, you can do so. That's always a choice. I just seen a comment in there that I forgot to mention Vue Storefront. So I'm glad someone mentioned that in there, because that's a great way also. And that's actually what we're going to use to create the Nuxt shop. So.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Talking about spoilers, I think you haven't mentioned yet that people could already try these things out if they want to. The version 2.13 isn't released yet, but I mean there's Nuxt Edge, so people could already give it a shot.
That is very true, and it's much more stable now than it was last week, because I found all the errors, and I had the team working on it left, right, and center, because this wouldn't work, and we fixed everything. So using Nuxt.js you can always download and use, but something will break. So if you're in production and you're using it and it breaks, just report an issue and we'll try and fix it. But you might have those problems, so that's why we recommend it for testing it out and for giving us feedback. But sometimes not always on your production side, although I always use it on my production side. So my website, debbie.codes, is using the Nuxt.js. So everything I've talked about, that's all from my site, and it's open source. You can check it out and play around with it, clone it, download it, and break it, and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, mostly the same, like pet projects and personal stuff. Nuxt.js is totally fine. It's somewhat stable because it still runs with CI, but of course it can maybe contain some things that aren't fully mature yet. But still, it's just a drop-in replacement. You remove Nuxt, you just add Nuxt.js through npmi or yarn add, and then you run it, and you can have all the goodies. The only problem is documentation is a bit scarce for, I mean, you have to dig in to the PRs or the doc PRs, but it's all accessible, it's all open source in the end. Yeah,
but as soon as it's released, all the documentation will be released with it, plus videos, plus articles. So if you don't want to rush into it and you want to wait a day, or maybe 2 days or 3 days, then you will have all that information given to you. So yeah, that's all going to come. So definitely worth the wait, I think, if you don't want to dig into what it's doing.
I think we are going about out of the scope, but we have another question from Santiago. Okay, it's too long to say, sorry. What is the better option to replace Nuxt server inits in single page application?
So Alex, you can take that one.
I've thought about it. So the thing is, Nuxt server init won't run because of SPA, correct? You can use a client-side Nuxt plugin for that. You still have the context, you can dispatch actions or commit mutations to the store, you can do whatever you want. A client-side Nuxt plugin is usually a good choice there. Okay,
create a plugin and put everything inside this.
Plugins are great.
And don't forget to put that client or
if you use SPA, use SPA, it doesn't matter because it's all on client anyway. But if you use static, for example, yes, then you want to use .client.js as prefix, as suffix. Sorry.
Yeah. Or mode client in the Nuxt config.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we are done with questions. I will wait maybe 2 minutes.
Well, I'll give you another little kind of spoiler, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we can do this, but again, we're very hopeful as developers because we think we can do so much, and then things happen, and it takes longer than we thought of. But we're hoping to release a better version of our new documentation by the end of this month. Right, so me and Alex have been working on the documentation, and it is amazing, and it's going to help with all these. Just like we've worked so hard in making it easier to understand, and we've created like almost like books that you can read through each chapter, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to only be in English for now because obviously it's just like beta, and then they're going to get the translators on board, and we're hopefully going to get like all your feedback, and the two documentations will be run like at the same time. So it means you can go to the new documentation, but if you are familiar with the old one and you want to see like how everything is and where to find things, then that's also still running, so you can go there and find things quickly, and then you can just start to kind of like venture into the new one and try it out and check it out. So that's kind of that's going to be amazing, and that is coming up hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thanks. So much pressure.
Luckily, we have a new design?
Well, luckily we have the content module. So I basically am going to put everything into the content module, which makes it so much easier. And because you've already got the search and you've already got previous next, etc., that really helps. We're not going to have a new design until September. So that's why we're putting it in beta. And then we just have all the content done. We can then get the translators working on it. So by September, when we have the new design, then we'll put the new docs out there. The old docs can go back in the bin, and we have only the new docs once we have all the translations in the other languages, because obviously that's really important. And yeah, that's going to be amazing. And then we'll improve it. We'll have quizzes and we'll have videos and we'll have so much more content is going to be added to it. But this is just like a kind of like a spoiler and help get the community involved in helping us make sure that it is amazing. So that's what we're hoping for. And yeah, I've seen the question up there on the Nuxt shop. The Nuxt shop, it's almost done. I've seen they're working on the wireframes. They're working on most of it. So it's not going to take too much longer, because we do have a team of 9 people working full-time on Nuxt.js at the moment, as well as the maintainers and as well as all the community that are doing all these amazing work. So there's a lot of people working in general on Nuxt. So we are getting things done, but we're doing so much that, you have someone on the shop, someone on content modules, someone on Nuxt full static, someone on documentation. So that's why bear with us. It's coming. I promise you, it's going to be very soon. Soon is an interesting word.
Soon.
Soon can mean tomorrow. Soon can mean in 1 month. Who knows?
Exactly.
And by the way, talking of that, I'm just curious to know, the Nuxt.js team, how big it is it, and if people want to participate, where to go and how to start.
So as a company, there's 9 of us that are full-time. So that means we get paid. I get paid to work with Nuxt. That's just cool, right? Then we have amazing people like Alex. Alex is kind of freelance because he has his own company and stuff. So then we, take him on board to help us. And we have a few other people that do that as well. And then we have the core team that working on stuff, the maintainers who have full-time jobs and then do in their free time, create all these amazing things. The components one was built by Kevin Marek. He has a full-time job and he just maintains that, community work for us, that maintainer work. So you have that as well. And then you have the community who are also building amazing stuff, really, really amazing stuff. And they're just doing that in their free time. So what can I say? Go to Discord, talk to Alex, because he's in there all the time. And we have an article section, a showcase section. So if you've written a blog post, I'd love to feature it in the newsletter. Just put it in there. I will search the Discord channels and find that article, that showcase of the website that you built. So when you guys do the Vue Montreal, the new website, and it's amazing, I'll feature that in the newsletter. Just send me the link. And anytime the community want to help out, we love the community. So it's all about the community for us. So there's so many ways you can get involved. I don't know if I've missed anything, Alex, if you can think of anything else.
Probably not. If you feel really experienced, digging into Nuxt source code all day, you can also start writing issues. But usually, if you say I want to get started, digging into the open source project, it's better to start with a module. This is how I started a couple of years ago, step by step, figuring out how does that module work, and then digging into the core. But yeah, if you think I want to give it a look, do you have any good first issues for me? Just hit us up, either Debbie or me, and we'll forward you a couple of issues where you say, okay, it might be a good option to tinker a bit with it and learn more.
And when we release the new documentation, help us make it better. So that's that's going to be really cool.
even for the current one, if you find typos, please just submit a PR. If you think like something is not like explained correctly or explained in a way it could be better, just on the bottom there is an edit this page link. Click there, submit it. We'll review it and we'll give you feedback. In the end, you'll help us to make Nuxt better.
Yeah, and I make loads of mistakes. Like my English is terrible. I was an English teacher for 10 years and I still write terrible English and miss things. As Alex knows, he's always correcting my English. So when they get out there, there'll probably be a lot of mistakes. So feel free, don't like think, oh my God, I can't correct her, right? Because you might be non-English, like non-fluent English. Like seriously, you're not gonna offend me. Like just go in there, go straight and correct me, help me. Thanks.
That's great. Yeah.
Maybe a last question. Maybe a last spoiler, maybe about Vue Composition API and Nuxt. I remember I saw a tweet from Atinux on it.
Well, this is going to be, so the next release is the 2.13, which is going to have the full static, and it's going to have the components by default, and it's going to have like, you know, a lot of other cool stuff as well, the preview, for example. And that's going to be the last release of version 2. Unless like there's a, you know, a bug or something like that, but the last major release, right? After that, we're going to go into Nuxt 3. So Nuxt 3 will be, I don't know when, could be like September, October, I don't know, right? But that's the next project that the core team will be working on. As soon as we release the full static module, then all work goes into Nuxt 3. Now, Nuxt 3 does not mean it will include Vue 3, right? Nuxt 3 and Vue 3 are not aligned. They don't have to be, but they could be. It just all depends because we're going to release when we're ready, but we don't know when Vue 3 is going to be released, right? It's kind of like the long ongoing question, and it could be next week or it could be October. It could be January. And we don't want to put everything in Nuxt and all the cool things on Nuxt on hold if the composition API is not ready yet. So basically we're going to release, and then as soon as Vue 3 is released, you know, then we'll just like, you know, add that to their next release. And, you know, so yeah, we're not in a hurry to release the composition API because it's not ready yet, basically. Simple as that.
Well, Vue is in beta already, so that's a quite mature step from alpha. But of course, like integrating the whole new syntax, we also try to do it without breaking too many things and creating too many break changes. So there are of course a couple of people, especially Puya and Sebastian, working on the Vue 3 branch that's open source, so you can follow that up. To somehow integrate Vue 3 because it changed a lot of internals here and there. I mean, it's a complete rewrite. And while there are not many breaking changes for the users, it doesn't mean there aren't many breaking changes for library authors or even like the Nuxt team. So this is also something to take into account. Also, how the adoption works out, how library authors will adopt Vue 3, and so on and so on. Plus, there is a Nuxt community package called Composition API, which kind of provides a few nice helper functions for the Vue Composition API plugin that exists for Vue 2 now, with all its caveats, but it works pretty well so far, and it gives another bit of synthetic sugar for Nuxt.js. So you have like community built Nuxt hooks in there for the Composition API, or composables, however you want to call it, and you can give that one definitely a shot. It's a GitHub package. I'll also link in the chat now, and that might be a good start as well. So if you want to transition to Vue 3 in the future and want to try out the Composition API plus having a bit of sexiness in there you go.
Yes.
Okay, super, thanks.
Yep, awesome. I think we're right on the mark, 1:30 here. And on this, yeah, a big thank you to you two, Debbie and Alexander. And thank you for everyone who attended. And thanks, Florent, for the help. And also thanks, I forgot to mention, thanks also to Ryan, who was behind the scene also with technical like backups in case anything happened. Thanks a lot for that. And otherwise, yeah, let's keep in touch on Slack, Nuxt, and I'll definitely join the Slack, the Nuxt Discord, and on Slack Vue Montreal, and on meetup.com to check out our next event. So thanks a lot, everyone, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
For coming. And
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you a lot.
Bye.